Hello, hello, hello. We're here.
Hey, there you are.
Hey, everybody. It's Clint Betts. You know what? We need an actual opening to this show because I don't know what to say at the beginning of it.
Every day's different.
Like, hey.
Sometimes you know the day, sometimes you don't.
Thank you all for joining us. It is a Thursday. We have an incredible guest today. I'm very excited to talk to him. Why don't you tell us who the guest is, Garrett?
Brenden Borrowman, founder and chairman of the Board of Axios VR.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
Yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah, this is great. Hey, real quick. Last night, the NHL officially came to Utah, and we packed the Delta Center. People had to be turned away to this event.
Yeah.
It was great.
Which sucks. Did you go?
Yeah, we were there, my wife and the kids.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing.
So unbelievable that we have an NHL team. The one thing I will say to all Utahns is this. You're going to love hockey. There are a lot of people who love hockey already in the state of Utah, so I don't want to act like Utah's never heard of hockey before, but you're going to love hockey players, and you're going to love the overall sentiment in the league. It's not like other leagues.
No.
They genuinely appreciate fans. I mean, we could talk about other leagues that I would say almost hate their fans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the NBA is getting to a point where they're like, we hate fans.
Yeah, they forgot what makes them money.
We hate them. And that might be an overstatement, but who knows?
Well, they're missing the key component. Hockey, you get punched in the face if you act out.
Yeah. And hockey players are the exact opposite. They
Yeah.
love the fans. They don't really weigh in on things that are controversial.
No.
They just freaking ball out for your team, your city, your state.
Yep.
You're going to love, and I think we saw that. I don't know. I mean, you were there. You tell me what you think. You kind of saw.
They were in shock.
You kind of saw that last night.
You got to think, the Coyotes are coming from a college arena with the lowest attendance, in my knowledge, of the NHL to Utah, where we had to turn Utahns away because we filled every seat. I don't think they were expecting that.
Yeah.
I don't think the NHL was expecting it because they told us Salt Lake City's too small for an NHL team 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
I think it blew the doors open a little bit on what Utah will show up for and support.
Utah punches above its weight class in things like this, things that involve community, things that involve everybody getting together, rallying around something. We're really good at it. We're a small state, little over 3 million people. I mean, New York City has more than double the population of the entire state of Utah, right?
Phoenix.
Like
by itself
Phoenix
has
by
more
itself.
people.
But we're really good at this. We're really, really good at this at community. Like, it's why we punch above our weight class even in tech and other areas, right? It's like, why are we so good at this? We're really good at kind of rallying around and supporting things that's happening. So I don't think like our numbers would say, why would we have an NBA team? Why would we have a Jazz team? I mean, Iowa doesn't have any of these things, do they?
No.
Or like if comparable, I don't know what a comparable state is.
Well, like Milwaukee punches above its weight with the
Milwaukee with the
Brewers
Brewers.
and Packers. San Antonio a little bit. There's a couple. Maybe it's a chip on the shoulder.
Packers are way far away from Milwaukee. Green Bay's so far away.
I know, but that's like the closest metropolis.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But I don't know, chip on the shoulder, or we just know what good, clean fun is and rally around that.
I mean, imagine this. We sent out, a few people sent out, Ryan sends out a tweet, Jazz sent out a tweet, Silicon Slope sends out a tweet, Governor Cox, a bunch of other folks come to the Delta Center tomorrow night. And
Easy.
It packs.
Easy.
What was the notification? 4 days?
Yeah. I think we knew that they were coming, the day and time and the details on Monday, actually. I think it was Monday when the actual like full details of how it would work.
The quick turnaround. And
so to have that from Monday to Wednesday night, just out of thin air, that many people show up. It's incredible. And, you know, look how excited they are. Again, I am all in on Utah Hockey Club, even more so when I see these hoodies and, you know, T-shirts that were being worn last night. Just scream the name Utah. I love it.
It's going to be fun.
It's very cool. Fun. It's very exciting.
Yes.
It's an exciting time to be a Utahn.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And you've got the Stanley Cup playoffs right now. For those that are new, they can watch the playoffs this year and
Watch my Bruins beat his Leafs. That'll be great.
They can have a working knowledge by next
You
season.
you have a team?
Well, I'd like the Toronto Maple Leafs to win it this year.
Ugh.
They're not like my team, but they're my team this year.
Are you an American citizen?
I know I usually don't do that, but they deserve it. Long suffering. You know, they're like one of the OGs of the NHL.
Do you like Justin Trudeau?
Ooh.
I just want the Toronto Maple Leafs to win. They have been long suffering, and they deserve it.
I like their brand, which is probably what you like.
It is a good-looking uniform.
I do look the uniform. I like Maple Leafs. How cool is that? That's so cool.
Well, it'll be a sad day when we finish them in 5. So
Yeah.
go Bruins.
Yeah, go Bruins for sure. Any
Right.
American team.
America.
This is America, Garrett.
But you got plenty of American teams you can support, and now you've got one in Utah.
Do they sing the Canadian national anthem each time too?
Yeah.
Is it
When they're home.
But when it's 2 U.S. teams, they don't play Canada,
No.
right?
No.
Okay, good.
But it is a beautiful anthem, second best to ours.
What are you doing? Who is this guy?
Second place is second place. It's not first.
This guy's a
Canada is one of our
communist.
best friends in the whole world.
Yeah, I like Canada.
Canada's cool.
Canada.
I don't know, they
is-
bag their milk. That's a weird thing.
And the nice thing is we're going to be able to have a bunch of Canadians on our team, and Canadians are a good hang. They're funny without trying and down to earth, just good dudes.
I don't know. I don't know why I'm making this prediction or why I'm even saying this, but I think people after the first 2 to 3 years will like the NHL team even more than the Jazz.
I would
Agreed.
agree.
Like the way hockey player, like you get obsessed with hockey players and they are super charming, like everything you just said. They're just like, they're hard not to root for.
Yeah. They're lovable.
Whereas like sometimes NBA players like, they're kicking fans out of the games for
Yeah.
trash talking them and stuff.
I haven't watched a game this decade or this century of the NBA, and that is one of the main reasons. Like,
Whoa, that's weird.
you can't do anything. You're just sitting there like in prison. But with the hockey games, you can get rowdy.
You can throw beer cans on the ice.
I
and
wouldn't
play.
recommend doing that.
You can't
That's
do that.
probably a bad idea.
You actually can't do that.
Yeah, it's probably a no-go.
But my goodness, can you imagine, like not rooting for your enforcer when he comes out? Oh, no.
It's my favorite part of hockey.
It's such a great game. It's going to be glorious.
Yeah, I think people are gonna love it. We also have an MLB team coming here, but Utah's gonna be a hockey state very soon.
I think everybody will be surprised that we have been a hockey state for a long time.
I think so too. There's a lot of Avs fans in the state of Utah. And McKinnon is I'm not even a huge hockey fan. Obviously, I'm about to be, but I watch some of these games and things. McKinnon is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Nate McKinnon is like super speed. He's like turbo mode.
Yep.
He's like 10 times faster than everybody else on the ice.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
It is. And we'll be able to see the tail end of Sid the Kid. That'll be a fun game when he comes. Ovechkin probably.
There's
going
to be a lot of them that we're catching the tail end of their run, which is going to be great.
And then you got these new, Matthews and McKinnon and Draisaitl. Draisaitl's a good watch. Edmonton.
I think
Canadian
Logan's
team.
going to do good for us. I'm pretty excited for Cooley. I know.
How
fans
are the
aren't that
Bruins
happy.
doing right now
We're up 2-1 in the series.
against?
The
Maple
Leafs.
Leafs.
Oh, you guys are playing.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Garrett, our
America
guest,
versus Canada, and
at the
America
very
will win.
least, take the Bruin side with our guest.
We already talked about it before.
Oh my
Intel
god,
guys.
It's like rooting against the Cubs or the Indians, right? In baseball, like Toronto deserves it.
No,
I
they
had
Boston's
don't.
already had.
I had
No,
no
no.
idea you were a turncoat. No idea. This is a brand new
It's
thing.
sports, and nobody deserves anything.
The fans do.
Eh,
You got
they're
some-
Canadian. They'll forgive us.
They are very forgiving. They're too nice.
Plus, they live in a great city.
It is a nice city. But Brenden plays hockey for the
Do you really?
Utah Warriors. I haven't played in a couple of years since I got diagnosed with my cancer and it got worse. But
You're
yeah, I
kidding
play for the
me.
Utah Warriors. We have
Not
a
the rugby
veteran.
team.
We have not the rugby team. We have a veteran hockey league here with USA Hockey that plays other states. Yeah, it's a great team, and you should support them wholeheartedly.
Where do they play?
So, all over the state, but mainly tournaments. So
Okay.
we did the Terry Fader for like 4 years in a row. There's one in November in Vegas that we go to every year. Yeah. Now that we have an NHL team, we can join the Penguins and the Flyers and every state that has a veterans team that has an NHL supporting the team. Those programs blow up, and you get veterans out of their house and on the ice playing hockey. It's great.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
it's a good program.
That's very cool. Tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Brenden Borrowman. I am the founder of Axios VR. It's a software development company specializing in neurotech. So we rebalance blood flow to the brain on injuries like TBI, PTSD, depression, adverse childhood exposure, using machine learning engine and an AI engine that we're training currently using VR gameplay.
So what got you into it?
I'm a veteran myself. So I joined the Army when I was 17, deployed to Afghanistan and was wounded in combat, and had the privilege to spend 2 years in the hospital system recovering myself. I met many, many great American heroes. And a couple years after I transitioned out, I did contracting. I got the notification of one of my friends. It was around the 20th suicide notification we got. So we passed our combat losses from suicide, and I figured if normal medicine was not going to help us, or we had available wasn't to help us, I'd figure it out myself. And that started in 2015. And from 2015 to now, I attained my PhD. We've done 8 years of research, identifying the physical injury, not just the spiritual or the emotional treatment, the normal standard practice. I wanted to know what was wrong with the machine, what mechanically was wrong with my friends that I thought were good, that just one moment weren't. And through that process is how we founded Axios. We started with a clinic here in Utah, a drug addiction clinic. I got really tired of telling people they couldn't afford it. It was very expensive. So I wanted to scale it into a more economic, responsible model and more obtainable for those that are struggling and don't have financial means. And VR was that next leap forward. When I first started the idea of VR in 2019, AI and VR were kind of they're probably not going to happen. And now the conversation is nothing but AR, VR, AR conversations. I mean, we got really lucky getting into it when we did.
Yeah.
So are you building these for Apple Vision Pros, for Meta's platform?
So our software will run on any platform,
Okay.
but we're partnered with HTC Vive for our DoD project we're doing right now. HTC they have a great headset. The Focus 3 has eye tracking built into it. We're in conversations with their team right now about a custom headset for our purposes, but for what they have right now off the shelf, what you can get, it's perfect for what we need to rehabilitate blood flow in the brain.
And give us like a sense for what it does. Like, how does it do what you're saying?
Yeah,
How
so
does it?
let's walk through that. So let's talk about injury first, and we'll have to scale back a little bit. The way our bodies are built, the way we have evolved and thrived to get where we're at today as society, when we are exposed to trauma personally, so that I'm sure everybody has heard the saying that the trauma to you, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. It's perspective of the individual. To get through the moment, if we go back to caveman times, if your child was eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, right? Just wild what ifs. You had to move through that moment to reproduce again, to survive and to grow. The human genome wanted to repopulate and grow on. So it reduces blood flow in certain areas. Certain areas your brain turn off, and the lizard brain kicks in, right? We don't have a process to naturally turn that back to where our baseline was before. So we start living with an exaggerated baseline. That was fine when the average lifespan was 30 to 40 years. We're now living over 100. And so you're seeing these complex issues start to have a systematic impact on other outcomes of your life with PTSD, trauma, depression. We have a generation now that is probably the most treated mental health wise ever in human history, but they seem to be the sickest generation out there. And it comes from because we're not looking at the mechanical injury of the human being. We're looking at it from a spiritual or emotional standpoint. How can we enable you? How can we be soft with this? Just like traumatic brain injury recovery, if you got a concussion 10 years ago, they told you to go in a dark room, avoid bright lights, take your time. Now we know active therapy is the quickest way to get through that phase. It's the same thing with emotional injuries. When we talk PTSD, depression, these complex systems that honestly a lot of people don't like to tackle. No one wants to tackle suicide. No one wants to tackle drug addiction. It's very hard to treat because it's a case-by-case nature. We don't focus on that. We focus on the blood flow. If I can get you back to operating at a good, healthy baseline, you naturally will find the modality of therapy that'll work for you. But we have to get you out of the injured state. What we do with VR is we use game mechanics that base off of our engine. Our engine's based off of our studies of blood flow in the brain. And then it takes the gameplay interaction, so your player telemetry, the way you're engaging, the way your eye moves, it's tracking all that, and the engine will say, okay, based off of that, we know these are our protocols, and the protocols have to shift in order to get a different outcome, so we're going to change gameplay mechanic. So as you're playing a live video game with your friends, it's a social component, removing patient resistance. As you're playing, the game's learning your player engagement, and it's tailoring your experience to you. And so the outcome of play helps us with a new outcome of blood flow. Our study so far, we're in the middle of a study now. We've had some progress studies. We are making the same impact I'm making in clinic in 14 days. I'm getting in 4 hours over 4 days, an hour a day over 4 days. We're getting the same baseline restorative of blood flow at $600 for a headset for a Meta 3 instead of $30,000 in clinic with my team. So it's been pretty intense and incredible. I'm very lucky. Our chief medical officer, we brought on board Dr. Agrifa, if you're listening. Shout out to him. NASA doc. He's right now trying to get on a actual leaving Earth mission, which we have our fingers crossed for him.
Wow.
Yeah, some smart people. I'm just the dumb door kicker that somehow figured his way into this table. But
oh, that's not true at all. You mentioned earlier, like the machine, and the machine you're talking about in this instance is our brains, right?
Yep.
Because you can get injured, and the orthopedics and the folks that work on the body are pretty good at that.
Yeah.
But it's always been the struggle with what you have between your ears. And so with this blood flow and the gamification, you mentioned 4 hours, but for somebody that comes in, let's say it's PTSD, how long did it take to kind of figure out, like, and notice improvements? And ultimately, like, if you built out the curriculum, for lack of a better word, of, oh, this person's progressing and we can actually check it and see it.
So we're seeing behavioral changes that are noticeable, right? Someone lighting up within 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So there's doing it the state of play. There's a patient resistance that you have in every industry when you're treating somebody, mainly in therapy. You'll get someone that comes in and you have to work over time to build a rapport with that patient, and then you can start kind of cracking into it. When you put somebody in a VR environment, automatically their state of mindset alters. I don't know if you've ever played VR, but it's like, oh, this is uncanny valley, something's off here. You immediately can buy in. And if it's a fun, engaging gameplay, your walls come down to defense. You're just in the moment playing the video game. So we're able to affect that state of change within 3 minutes. But over the four days, we're doing an hour a day. Our biggest breakthroughs come around day 3. The lights kind of come back on. Because that blood flow is starting to restore itself naturally. We're not altering it chemically. You're not doing a psychedelic. This isn't MDMA. It's not mushrooms. It's not a pharmaceutical. Those temporarily restore blood flow. People feel really great on them, but there's a half-life. It dies off. We're naturally just using the body. Think of a muscle when you go to the gym and you train. You're training that muscle to naturally grow. We're doing the same thing for blood flow in the brain using gameplay modalities.
Very cool. And you've got like the results you can measure and you can see on a dashboard and stuff, but ultimately, like the people saying, I feel better, or I feel like I did 10 years ago or something like that. That's also a data point, right?
It's my most important data point. I have one that we've treated that publicly come out and talk about it. He's signed paperwork, but Brian, I mean, we've been in contact since I treated him a year ago. He's one of my first in VR, and attributes it to completely changing his mindset to survive things that happened before and after, just being able to be present in the moment instead of letting it run wild. I mean, suicide happens so fast. When someone really wants to do it, it's not something that's planned. It's a reaction to an emotional impact or stimulation, and that's when we lose them. I mean, the study showed if you can get to somebody that's suicidal in the first 5 minutes, the chance of saving their lives over 90%. It's great, but how do you catch them in the 5 minutes?
Yeah. Most
of the time, I mean, all of my friends that have committed suicide, you didn't know. I mean, they were smiling and then they went to bed and you wake up to a notification. Because it happens so fast. Brian attributes what his brain is now operating on, the level of clarity of thought process, because his blood flow is there to actually process. I mean, we talk about blood flow. We're talking about your amygdala, basal ganglia, your midbrain, where you're really emotionally processing and being able to think clearly and like, why am I feeling this way? Why do I do the things I do? When you have a restricted blood flow or deregulated blood flow in these areas, you're bypassing that. You're going to your frontal cortex. You're doing a process to respond, but you're not doing it in a rational perspective. It's not rational in the moment. So I hear a lot of addicts when they like, why did you start using heroin? I felt great and I could think when I first started. Well, the body built tolerances and you took more and more and more. And then the addiction's running you, chasing a feeling than the actual process itself. The outcomes for me are, can someone think clear? Are we helping their thought process, their clarity of thought? Are we helping them progress forward in whatever their journey is of healing?
Mm-hmm.
If we can't do that, then my product's useless.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we are doing that.
Yeah. Kudos. You mentioned, the treatment is tricky because it's all individualized, right? Like the soldiers of World War I had a completely different experience with, shell shock and massive artillery barrages. World War II, frontal assaults and, prolonged 4 years. But with the war on terror, it was asymmetrical. You didn't know. Nobody was in a uniform. All of these are different forms of PTSD, but with your platform and program, it can all be treated in the same way, right?
So trauma's trauma. A veteran is in trauma is the same as a housewife in trauma, same as a 13-year-old in trauma. Trauma is trauma. We're looking at from a fundamental level, what is the blood flow doing? I don't care if you're the only trauma to you is you got a flat tire, spilt Starbucks on your shirt, and your day is horrible. To some people, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to them, and they're going to respond that way.
I do that literally every day, what you just described.
Freak out?
No, I spill on my shirt every day.
And then he comes in all sad.
Yeah, I'll get you a VR headset.
It ruins my day. I need a headset. I really do.
We'll do
Or a
state
lid.
change on you.
A lid to his cup.
I'll get you a straw too. We'll start with a straw. No, but trauma's trauma. So when we're looking at someone in our system, the engine isn't evaluating this individual as, oh, this is a veteran, or this is a housewife, or this is a child. The system is evaluating, this is a performance. Here are data points from whoever the user is. We know in order to get the data points we want, we have to do X. And it will implement those protocols and changing game features to map what outcome we want to where we know healthy blood flow resides in actions and accuracy. One of the things that we talk about too is this isn't a product just for people in trauma. I mean, we're talking performance increases too. From an human hacking, biohacking, performance standpoint, we're able to increase accuracy, spatial mapping, mapping awareness, threat identification for hearing. One of the things we're talking to the DoD on is human performance, being able to take an operator that's already running at high level and then being able to incorporate these processes and go, hey, your operator's now at 3 or 4% accuracy on identification from a pixelation standpoint. It's translating over to their VOR, VORX, or we're seeing an increase in staccato relief or smooth pursuit. Those have real world implications on the lethality and accuracy of a soldier. The same thing can be said about a sports player. And we talked about NHL. If I can increase the goalie's ability to identify the puck, even by a fraction, it's going to give him an edge over everybody else.
Yeah.
And so it's a well-rounded product, an engine, and it leads to kind of, as the founder, CEO, you have your vision, right, of where you want things to go. And one of my biggest ones is I want, with what we're building with our AI engine, I want to replace the human error element when it comes to therapy. I mean, that's our biggest error point across the board, is the human element when it comes to therapy. I'm not saying if you're a therapist walking into this that you're part of the problem, but we all know therapists that shouldn't be therapists. Just like we know doctors shouldn't be doctors, cops that shouldn't be cops, teachers shouldn't be teachers. They exist in every profession, but it's one of our biggest critical failing points in the process we currently have. Yeah. And that's our goal, is within 5 years to replace that element completely with our engine.
Very cool.
I love that. Have you read Bad Therapy?
I have not.
It's like one of the #1 books in the country. Everybody's talking about this thing by journalist Abigail Schreier.
Oh, this is about the trans movement in girls, correct?
I think she did. Her previous book was about that.
Okay.
And this one's about just like therapy and how we may be over therapizing our kid. I don't know if that's the word she used, but I think we're giving them too much therapy, too much affirmation, too much like what you're feeling is valid. You shouldn't be sad. Let's take the sadness away by giving you an SSRI or, making you go see a therapist every week or something like that. And she says that's actually doing more harm than good.
I completely agree with her statement. 100%. Just from a treating perspective, I mean, without pressure, there's no growth. So if we put somebody into a bubble, look at TBI, we put somebody in a bubble, that's where they will stay. That the state of their brain and their performance that's kind of where you're going to level out. Whereas if we induce active therapy, which induces pressure on the individual, you see a massive growth of blood flow, but also performance of recovery. I think it's the same thing with mental health. We all know the people who have the assumptions when treating patients, or the God complex that this is what you have, or some of these doctors and clinics, especially in the VA system, are so overworked. I mean, they have 30 minutes to meet with a patient, and then that patient leaves and the door opens and another one sits down. You don't have enough time to even build rapport. You're just trying to treat symptoms. Here's a prescription medication. Hopefully it helps. If it doesn't come back, we'll change it, or we'll change your level. Everybody gets into it with the hope that they're going to make impact. I'm not going to take that away from anybody. I think everybody gets into that profession thinking they're going to make change and help and heal people. But the issue is it's too much, and we have clinics now that are catering to mental illness and catering to delusions of grandeur, I think, where, if the worst thing that's ever happened to you is you spill your Starbucks on your shirt and you have a flat tire, a therapist should be enabling that. They should be challenging it, right?
Yeah.
Because you need that pressure and growth to move forward. I would like to see our engine, what we're working on right now is cognitive behavior therapy protocols with AI. Think of a chat GPT and an avatar. It will, within the next couple of years, it's going to be so indistinguishable of a human being. You won't know that it's not a therapist talking to you. But instead of making assumptions or coddling or enabling, it's going to use the data points to put pressure and help growth. That's our biggest issue.
Because there would be no reason for repeat business at that point, right? Like
No.
a GPT that's just like, here's most likely, you've told me everything that's going on. Here's the way you should treat it. Rather than like, yeah, that is happening to you. Like in this book, it talks about like, hey, when we tell people they suffer from anxiety and we diagnose them with anxiety, then they can blame everything on anxiety, like them not wanting to do stuff, all that type of, our kids, right? And she's like, that's not useful. We actually like want like, hey, you will have anxiety in life. Life kind of is anxiety. It's not like these things aren't real and depression isn't real or anxiety isn't real. But for like a 14-year-old kid, particularly in America in 2024, we probably should be like, we should actually be making things a little bit harder for you.
Agreed.
We should probably making you more anxious.
Yeah.
We should be adding to that.
Yeah.
Rather than like, if you go to a therapist, you're like, hey, I have anxiety. They're going to say, yeah, you do. Because I want to see you next week. I want to, and then obviously drug companies are like, yeah, of course you do. And here's this thing that if you just take this pill, you solve it. It's like this weight thing. If you just take Ozempic, it'll solve it. It's like, what? There's no side effects? No anything? Like, you know what I mean?
Which we're now
like,
seeing the bone density loss.
Yeah,
and,
like, are we sure? Are we sure we need a pill for everything?
Yeah. I agree completely with her statement, just from what I've seen in clinic over the years. And look at the state of our country, right? Let's just talk from a very 40,000 foot overview. I mean, identity politics. You can't even have a conversation or a healthy debate anymore. Why? Because the fear and the anxiety that they might be right overwrites your ability to even listen to their reasoning. You can't just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of that has to do, we are privileged enough to live in a society where the threat of violence is no longer prevalent. You see on the news, crime, robberies. And I'm not saying if you grew up in like Chicago, you're not seeing violence or,
certain areas of Chicago.
Certain areas of America, yes, it's very prevalent and those people are aware. But I mean, I grew up here in Utah. You guys are here in Utah. Utah's a very
safe.
We have a bubble. We are blessed to have a bubble of ignorance to the threats of the world. It does not help our mental fortitude and resiliency growing up in this bubble, never being exposed to pressure of doing hard things. I got really lucky growing up to be exposed to sports, combat sports, boxing, wrestling. I mean, being able to push your mindset of like, you can lose, but you also learn what you can take. We're losing that in our new generation of child because they are on video games all day. One of the things I get asked a lot is, why did you do a video game? Well, when we started this for veterans, I want the private in his barracks room to want to do therapy. I want him to, whatever the modality is, I want him to do it without being told or being ordered or bossed. Like, let's create like a Call of Duty. And while he's going to want to do it and play with his friends, we can have a health benefit. So we started there. We're now seeing the impact of not veterans. We're talking the younger generation, children, my own kids, that this is right now like what they do. This is the number one thing for entertainment across the board for especially males between the ages like 14 to 31 is video gaming. It's not going out with your friends anymore. I mean, just the participation of going out on Friday night with your friends has dropped significantly over the last 10 years. And that's the growth and the trend we're seeing. That's why we implement it the way we did. Because if I can get to them in that phase and we can start encouraging and changing blood flow to where they're healthy and they're absorbing things again, maybe we can change that vector the other way. I mean, our goal, let's talk veterans because I'm a veteran. Our veteran number, I'm sure everybody's heard the number 22 a day. 22 veterans a day commit suicide. Since COVID, the new VA statistics say it's 49. So we not only have doubled the suicide a day number in this epidemic, but our population of veterans has shrunk by 10%. How do you have a population shrink and a more than double increase in the issue? What we have and the systems we have in place are failing. And the veterans are being tracked because the VA, it's a government program. What are the numbers for teen suicide? What are the numbers for just regular adults, moms and dads? It's going through the roof. We lived in COVID and the pandemic, an accelerated increase of anxiety with no modality of treatment or de-escalation of the issue. And we had the news go out there and tell everybody, if you don't wear a mask, you're killing grandparents. Like CNN said that. You had newscaster said that. It was disingenuous because it inflicted fear into people. And when people do not have an outlet or a healthy stressor to push pressure against it, it causes an exorbitant increase in the symptoms they're already having. That's what we've seen. And I don't think this is a left or a right issue. This is just a human issue. We are unwell and we have to get better.
Yeah.
We're unwell. It's just what it is. And our goal, my vision with my company is we can, at a very affordable price, start healing everybody in their homes, at least from a fundamental level of blood flow. It's up to you if you're going to go get a therapist or whatever modality therapy you want, whether it's horses or sports, or maybe you just like to go for a hike, whatever it may be. You can find your own modality. We can go to Barnes & Noble and pick 300 books off the shelf that'll tell you how to heal yourself from a therapy modality standpoint. But let's get the machine working right. If the engine's not working, the car's not going to turn on. So let's get the engine on. That's our goal at Axios. And then it's up to the individual with their recovery modality to move forward.
Yeah.
What impact do you think COVID-19 had on us?
Oh, horrible. I think it was one of the worst things in modern history that we can point back to. We point back to when we were lobotomizing patients, right? The psych wards where they were cutting people's brains out.
Right.
I look at COVID as the same thing. We masked an entire generation of children who learned from watching faces. So we have the children that went through COVID in schools, right? From kindergarten to fifth grade, the studies are already showing they're reading at a lesser level. The math scores have dropped. We damaged them. I don't even know if we can correct it at this point without massive increase of funding in programs that come in, but we're not even talking about it. Then we talk about social anxiety and anger. Oh my gosh. I mean, you dehumanized your opposition. Everybody's wearing masks. It feels like you're on a computer. You can say whatever you want, do whatever you want. I mean, just look at any protest, whether it's a left or a right protest now, and you'll see violence. I don't remember that happening when I was a kid in the 90s. I remember seeing protests and people yelling at each other, and that was always around. But the scale at which we're seeing it spiral, I don't think has ever existed in our time. I'm talking modern times. Of course, you can go back to the medieval ages. People stabbed each other with swords.
60s was pretty crazy, too. Yeah. In terms of protests, assassinations, things like that. Like, it might not be on the same level here because social media and all that type of stuff, but the 60s was pretty crazy. Can you imagine, like, waking up one day, it's like, somebody shot the president?
Yeah, but let's look at the 60s. Very isolated. When we talk about the violence and the protests, how many cities were those in?
That's true. Yeah, it was like
it's on every college campus in America right now.
Yeah.
It's in every city. It's in every workforce. It's in every home. I mean, COVID took families and tore them apart. They let identity politics tear grandparents from grandkids over a vaccine. I mean, I don't think we've ever had this.
You know what's going to be
ever. You
know what's interesting too is all of those media companies, health officials, government officials who said, "Hey, if you get the vaccine, you won't get COVID." in order to move on from this, we need like an apology. Hey, we were wrong. That was wrong. And now, but instead of that, it's kind of more like, well, science changed, everything changed. And it's like excuses like, well, you don't believe in science. You don't believe in this. It's like, I don't believe or not believe in science. Like, who cares? But you said, if you get this thing, you won't get COVID. And that was not true.
It was a disaster.
And we've had no accountability for that. If you want to get trust back, you've got to take accountability.
I mean, we can look at not just COVID, but many things of accountability. From a veteran perspective, withdrawal of Afghanistan, Iraq. I mean, 20 years, and that's how we left in a week.
Yeah, why no apology for like...
Not just apologies, but accountability means consequences for actions. No one's ever been held accountable.
Did anybody get fired for our withdrawal of
No.
Afghanistan? Not a single person.
No. The only person that got fired was a lieutenant colonel who spoke out in uniform against command staff. So, I mean, we have a lot of issues, and a lot of that comes down to, I believe, and this is my belief, we don't have data on it, but I truly believe most Americans walking around have an irregulated blood flow. And you can look at that from just the amount of trauma we've had as a nation since 9/11 to now. Just the amount of things that have come at us so fast we can't keep up. I mean, the digital expansion, our bodies are not designed to evolve fast enough. We went back to here in Utah 600 years ago, and you're a Native American in a tribe. The mental health of that tribe was much healthier because you knew where you rated. If you were the best rabbit catcher of your tribe, you go out and get rabbits. Doesn't matter if everybody laughed at you, there was a joke, or you knew where you rated. Kids nowadays, people nowadays do not. They look at Instagram influencers and they see all the jets and the houses and the parties. There's a line in LA, like it books all day for fake jet photos where influencers go and take photos inside a private jet. It doesn't even take off.
You're kidding.
And they fake it. It's a
To what
perception.
end?
Perception's
To
a
what end?
reality, and our youth are trying to catch up. And not even just our youth, but I think our generation are doing the same thing. 30s, 40s, 50s. You look at Instagram, you're like, oh, their family looks so great. And we compare. That's all we do. It's a human nature to compare. We are all we're walking wounded. Military term, you're walking wounded. You can still perform and fight, but you're walking wounded. We as a nation, it goes back to my earlier statement, we are wounded, we're sick. We have to get better. And my mission, my company's mission, our partners' missions, everybody that's working with us at Axios understands this fact that we're all sick, and we have to start implementing tools to make us better now. Because I fear if we don't start now, if it's not my company, if it's another company, awesome. But if we do not start today, what do we look like in 15 years? AI is coming. Whether anybody here wants to debate it or not, it is coming. It's coming quick. We have to, as humans, be able to adapt emotionally and reasonably when people start losing jobs, when people start losing just their faith in the news. I mean, from deep fake states, it's insane. We have to catch up, and natural evolution is not going to do it for us.
I think news is dead. At least like corporate media. Like, I don't think anybody believes anything that they say anymore. Because again, there's no accountability. You can't like just lie to us forever.
Yep.
And expect us like, oh, this time they're telling the truth. It's just not going to happen. It's over. That's it for you. But the hard thing is like, it's not over for government officials. It's not over for like the people in various areas of power. What I think is interesting about what you're doing is the video game aspect. I want to go back to that for a second. Because there have been studies that show video games are actually like not entirely negative for people and even kids, because you are accomplishing things on that game. There is kind of some camaraderie if you're doing it with your friends. Obviously, if you're doing it 5-10 hours a day, you shouldn't be doing that. But there is studies that show like, hey, this might not be the worst thing in the world for kids to be doing, or people like with mental health issues, probably like a great thing for them to be doing, right? Because there's this feeling of accomplishment. That is so different than social media, which is awful. Like the fact that we are not treating social media like cigarettes, like we now treat cigarettes, is actually a real issue in our society. We are going to look back at this, and I actually think future generations are going to look back at us like, what were you doing? We got rid of that a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I think to prove your point, we look at cigarettes the way we do because there were people not addicted to cigarettes. There were people who didn't smoke. They went, hey, Something's wrong here. The issue today is everybody's on social media. Everybody is addicted.
Oh,
And the
that's
people who
fascinating.
break out of the Truman Show and start saying, hey, there's a problem here. The dopamine hit you get from TikTok, and it comes from the gambling industry. I mean, Facebook did this with the scroll and the feed and the likes. There's a reason you can like things and not down-like them, right? It's structured to keep you on there. That's why you make money. It's why you make profit, as you want more engagement. How do I redirect engagement? There are video game companies out there right now using AI to monitor chat while you're playing the video game. And if you're complaining that, this game sucks, I'm about to get off and go golf with my friends, there are algorithms running right now that put you in easier lobbies with people with less skill than you, so you have a better game your next rotation, so you stay on the platform longer.
Mollycoddling.
So this is an issue.
Oh, gosh.
How do you tell people? Everybody, I think, can agree we have a problem with social media. But it's one thing to say, like here in the room with you guys, we have a problem with social media. It's another thing to look at your battery usage and be like, oh man, I spent 3 hours on Instagram. What was I doing?
By the way, TikTok is so addicting. It's so good. TikTok in particular has figured out this algorithm where everything you see, you want to see, and you just want to keep going. TikTok is incredible at that. I don't use Instagram. I don't use Facebook. I use Twitter, but I'm not on there all the time. TikTok, I need to delete it from my phone. Like, that is actually like a crazy. I don't know how they did it. It's actually magic.
Like, alcohol, weed, not for me, but meth. Let's just jump into the worst one I can do. Let's just go full
It's
tilt.
magic. It's actually magic. Like, you're like, oh, that was great. I did want to see that. And you just keep going.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch, just asking people when you interact with them, like, hey, pull up your battery usage and tell me how much time you spend on your apps. And they'll look at it like, it says 9 hours. That's not true. A lot of things can happen when it's in 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and it's all day. But
I've never ran out of battery on my phone because I don't have any of it.
I do, but it's from Kindle. That's my addiction. I'm horrible.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Kindle.
Yeah, it's so bad.
It's a lot better.
That's my TikTok.
Reading. That's incredible. I was at a dinner, a Huntsman Mental Institute. Have you heard what the Huntsmans are doing around mental health? And they've started this institute.
I heard they have like a $20 million endowment to increase it, correct?
That's exactly right. I think it might even be more than that.
Oh, wow.
I think it might be 100 million that the family itself has done. But yeah, and they're going all in, and they're trying to get the entire community. And they had a dinner this week, actually. And one of the doctors there who's working on the AI and data and all that type of stuff, I had a chance to sit right next to her. And she told me something that blew my mind, and you probably already know this. She says that 70% of the people who attempt suicide the first time are successful. 90% of veterans who attempt the first time are successful. It's like this huge increase. Like, isn't that fascinating? It's like 70%.
Not really.
70%, if you try the first time, you're going to be successful. And she was saying, like, hey, we need to catch them. She's saying what you're saying. We need to catch them before that even pops up. Like, why aren't we treating them 10 years before, or 5 years before, like understanding, like, hey, you might be at risk for it in this way or something like that. Like, but the fact that veterans is so much higher than the general population is disturbing.
You can attribute a lot to that. Veterans are trained to plan, right? You think through things. They have an exposure window to lethality and violence that I would say most of the population walking around isn't. But at the end of the day, it's something that's fixable, and it's unexcusable that we're there. It's unexcusable we're at 49. It doesn't make sense. I mean, the VA is spending $8 million a minute attempting to fix the solution, and it's only gotten worse. If I was running a private company or a public company as a CEO, and that was my success metric, hey, we're spending $8 million a minute, but we've gotten worse doubly so, I'd be fired. And I'm not blaming the VA as people. I'm blaming the system. The way the system's built, every VA is its own little kingdom, right? Each VA chooses its own things. They're very discombobulated. There's not a central governing aspect that says, this is what we are going to do. Here it is. It's getting that. It's slowly churning that way. I think they've seen the errors of like, hey, here's the data. We have to make a course adjustment. But I think from your standpoint of why is it more, I think veterans are exposed more to a neuro imbalance than most people because of the training you go through. Most veterans are exposed to micro concussions, secondary TBIs throughout their entire career. in training. You go to boot camp, you were a veteran, you throw a grenade, right? That doesn't include your live fire sand crawls where they're throwing flashbangs and pits a foot and a half away from you. I mean, these are all basic things to train you to push through a firefight. That's part of boot camp for every MOS. So I don't care if people are like, oh, but he was a cook. He still went to boot camp and was exposed to concussion events. The concussion events paired with trauma leads us to the actions we're seeing now. And until we can step in and start fixing, like what we're doing at Axios, there's other clinics around the world, Pittsburgh Medical Institution, starting to look at the active treatment of concussions. This is a new conversation we're having, thank God. When I started this conversation in 2015, everybody in the room looked at me like I was crazy. And now here we are in 2024, and thank God everybody's having it. I would like us to see the protocol become, let's treat the symptoms regardless, and then let's worry about the emotional state, because we can catch the veteran before that 90%. If this is what we're talking with the DoD on, if they have a headset throughout their entire career, we're working on preventative maintenance and then maintenance when an event happens. And then when they leave, they also have it. I mean, let's talk about the 3 products at Axios. We have the game we talked about. We have mini neuro games, which are very condensed, targeted. They're non-multiplayer. This is what you get in clinic. Very targeted. It's not gameplay focused, it's modality focused. And then we have therapy spaces where we have tools to help the therapist in the virtual environment read. Telehealth, our barrier of entry at telehealth is the human aspect's gone. If I'm on BetterHelp, I'm on Teledoc, I'm working with my therapist through a TV, Zoom, my phone, text message, the human element of connection's gone. I don't have that anymore. A therapist cannot gauge where somebody is at accurately through a phone, through a device, through tech. Our software allows a therapist to sit in there while our engine is monitoring the patient. We know where heart rate variability increased. We know where they were fidgeting. We know if they just set it down and walked away. Like we have data points to go back to therapists. Here are your recommendations for next session. Here's where you hit soft points. That's what we've created with the therapy product, and it's to increase our demand of telehealth. That's one good thing about COVID is it broke down a lot of these barrier entries into telehealth and expansion with HIPAA compliance, everything else. That kind of it got thrown out the window when we shut down our country. And now the genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back in. So we want to take advantage of where this is moving in a positive way of reinforcing where therapists might be failing through that modality and that medium of communication. We can support them and say, here's where you can move forward versus, hey, we had a great text message and then that was it. I mean, that's why telehealth, it spiked, and now the numbers are showing every company that's public that invested heavily in telehealth, they're all reporting losses this year because people aren't getting the help they thought they were going to get, and they stop engaging with the platform. So our hope is to step in and be a good medium to increase those results again and make it more accessible. It's unfair to tell somebody that's in trauma, that's hurting, hey, get up, get dressed, eat food, go sit in traffic, travel across town to go see your therapist, sit there, maybe wait 15 minutes because their session's running over. All of that stress and pressure to talk to a stranger about what's bugging you. I mean, that's what was so attractive to telehealth therapy, was you can do it in the comfort of your own home. We want to make that, the performance increase on that better.
How do we have you on the show every day?
I live down the street.
Celebrity
Let's
guest.
do it. Celebrity guest. I'll be a co-host.
That'd be incredible.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Next time I'm not going to wear a suit. I'm going to wear a polo like you guys.
Well,
I'll fit in.
The truth is, Garrett and I are about to go golfing.
Little therapy there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're trying to get a little therapy of ourselves.
Team bonding.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we look like these dorks.
What's next on the horizon for you and your team? Y'all raising money?
We're in a raise right now.
Okay.
Yep. So we have a DoD pilot. We are launching in 2025. We will be at the Modern Marine. So anybody watching, if you're in DC next week and you want to catch up with us, let us know. We'll be in DC for the week and then Florida the next week after that for a day. We're in the middle of a race. AI is the next .com boom, right? You go into the investors watching probably like, oh, AI again. The reason we paired with HTC is we're the only platform that actually is using their hardware with an actual AI deliverable. Not a, here's our idea of what we're going to do with it. It'll do pictures or it'll do ChatGPT. It's an actual application. We've patented the system to do what we're doing to the brain and then the response back. So we're in the middle of a race. We're halfway through it right now. It's going really well. I don't want to talk too much on it, but we're pretty happy with it. But if you're out there looking for your next thing, please reach out to us. We're not at our finish line yet, so we'd like to talk to as many people as we can and show them what we're working on. But yeah, the team's very excited.
Color me impressed. Yeah, I think we just scratched the surface with you and your stories and your company, so it would be great to have you on frequently.
You mentioned real quick that you had cancer. How is that today?
I'm terminal. So this is my vision project. My beautiful wife who's watching right now, Mercedes, and the kids, this is my legacy for them and legacy for my brothers and sisters in the military. I want to leave something that actually helps my friends save their lives. I'm so tired of the push-up challenges and the awareness. That was one of the big things that pushed me into doing this is everybody had what was the cold water challenge for ALS? And we had the push-ups for veterans, 22 push-ups. It didn't help anything. We got worse. If anything, the awareness on it made people think about it more, and it just sucked. This is my product, my project I want to see forward. I won't be here to see it complete. I just had surgery a couple weeks ago. We had to reschedule because I had surgery. Thank you guys for being accommodating on that at the beginning of this month. When I go. It is what it is. But this is for my wife, Mercedes, is amazing. She's part of the business. She's our process. She's the process to my craziness, right? Every creator has someone that sets the rules. She's amazing. She keeps me on point. But yeah, this is our legacy piece. And if, I go tomorrow, I have the team, everybody on my team will get this over the finish line. They all know what I know. Thank God I have, amazing partners. If you're watching right now, John, Griff, Coop, Brian, all you guys can. Everybody that's watching right now, thank you so much for believing in our mission. It's been a labor of love. We've self-funded to this point, and we've been a business for a year. We've been developing full tilt for 11 months. Everybody here from the tech space, development, how expensive that is. A lot of it is just coming because everybody knows the impact this mission is going to have. We have veterans on the team. We have families that have had suicide on the team, drug addiction. This is an issue that hits every home in the country, if not the globe. Mental health hits everybody. I don't think there's one viewer right now be like, I don't know anybody that doesn't have issues.
Yeah,
that would have been a statement in the early 2000s because we were just blind to it, but it's not a statement you can make today.
You are without question the most impressive person I've met in a very long time.
Thank you.
I mean that sincerely. Wow. It's incredible what you're doing, man. I'm actually speechless.
Yeah, it's been great having you on.
Well, I'll come back. We'll talk hockey and poaching and everything else.
You are invited here anytime you want.
Thanks, man.
Incredible.
I appreciate it, guys.
That's it for this week. Actually, we're done for the entire week. We will see everybody Monday. Do you know who the guest is Monday?
Jonathan Hitzhusen, founder of Backyard Office Utah.
Okay. Jonathan, we'll see you Monday.